Scene script. Have you ever wondered about the origins of the Israel-Palestine conflict, one of the longest-standing and most complex conflicts in human history? To understand this conflict, we need to travel back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This was the period when the Zionist movement started gaining momentum. Zionists, largely Jewish people from Europe, aspired for a homeland in what was then known as Palestine, a region under the control of the Ottoman Empire and later, the British. In the early 20th century, the British government expressed its support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine through the Balfour Declaration. Subsequently, during the British Mandate of Palestine, the Jewish immigration to the region increased manifold. The horrors of the Holocaust during the Second World War further intensified this migration, adding fuel to the already simmering tensions between the Jewish immigrants and the Arab Palestinians. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international control. Despite Palestinian and neighboring Arab states' opposition, the State of Israel was declared in 1948. This marked the beginning of a series of wars and a conflict that continues to this day. So how has this conflict manifested over the years, and what efforts have been made towards peace? The genesis of the conflict led to a series of wars, with the first major one being the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, shortly after the establishment of the State of Israel. Many Arab nations joined forces in an unsuccessful attempt to prevent the formation of Israel, leading to a conflict that set the stage for decades of tension. 6 years later, the Six-Day War of 1967 saw Israel capturing territories like the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, further intensifying the strife. This fast-paced conflict significantly altered the landscape of the Middle East and amplified the Palestinian refugee crisis. The Yom Kippur War of 1973, initiated by Egypt and Syria, was another crucial point in the conflict. Though it ended in a military stalemate, it led to significant political changes and a shift in the balance of power. Parallel to these wars, there have been numerous attempts to broker peace. The 1978 Camp David Accords marked a significant turning point as it led to the Egypt-Israel peace treaty. This was the first time an Arab nation recognized Israel and made peace, a monumental step towards resolving the conflict. The 1993 Oslo Accords were another major effort, where both sides agreed to mutual recognition and the establishment of a Palestinian Authority. However, the accords fell short of addressing key issues such as borders and refugees. In the 2000 Camp David Summit, there was a near breakthrough, with Israel offering to withdraw from most of the West Bank and Gaza. However, disagreements on the status of Jerusalem and the right of return for Palestinian refugees resulted in a deadlock. Despite these peace efforts, the core issues of the conflict remain unresolved. What are the core issues driving this conflict, and what is the current situation? The conflict between Palestine and Israel is deeply rooted in history, but it's driven by a few core issues. The first is Jerusalem, a city of immense religious significance to Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. The status of this city and its holy sites has long been a point of contention. This includes the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, which was at the center of recent clashes and tensions. The second issue is that of refugees. Since the War of 1948, millions of Palestinians have been displaced from their homes, creating a humanitarian crisis that persists to this day. Then we have the settlements, Israeli communities built on lands occupied during the 1967 war. These settlements are seen by many as a violation of international law and a major obstacle to peace. The final two core issues are borders and security. The boundaries of Israel and a future Palestinian state are yet to be agreed upon, while both sides have legitimate security concerns that need to be addressed. Fast forward to 2023, and we see a recent escalation of violence, with incidents in Tel Aviv and the West Bank making headlines. This has coincided with a shift in global sympathies towards Palestine, with a record 31% of Americans now expressing sympathy for the Palestinians. This shift is attributed to increased use of social media by Palestinians to share their experiences, and the influence of high-profile celebrities voicing their support for Palestine. Interestingly, this issue is becoming increasingly polarized among different political and religious groups. The Democratic Party in the United States, for example, is seeing a significant shift towards pro-Palestinian sentiments. However, support for Israel remains strong, particularly among Republicans, Christian evangelicals, and those swayed by war on terror rhetoric. Despite these shifting narratives and growing sympathies for the Palestinian cause, the reality on the ground remains grim. Palestinians continue to live under occupation or blockade, their daily lives marked by insecurity and hardship. The reality for Palestinians living under Israeli occupation remains unchanged, and the need for a just and peaceful resolution is more urgent than ever. So, why should we refocus on the innocence of Palestine and the need for peace? Well, beneath the headlines and the politics, the majority of the Palestinian population are innocent civilians, many of whom are children. These individuals bear the brunt of the conflict, their lives overshadowed by tension and violence. It's not about taking sides, it's about acknowledging the human cost of the conflict. There is an urgency to respect human rights, uphold justice, and seek a peaceful resolution. It is high time we acknowledge the innocence of Palestine and work collectively towards a just and peaceful resolution to this conflict.